Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. We have an inside the box video for you today. This is basically stuff that I don't want to call unboxings because they're not in the shrink wrap and they're not brand new, but that nevertheless I think some people would appreciate a look inside the box. Today's entry is War in the Desert. This is a game released by Game Research and Design back in, I want to say, the 90s. Picked this because this is what we are playing right now. Even as I recover from minor surgery and let the rest of the group set this up at the place we're playing, we are here doing a video on it comes in the War in the Desert box. Now, I got this as sort of part of an estate bequeathal. A friend of a friend passed away, and I ended up with some of those war games. This is one of those things. So I've had this in my possession for about a year and a half, maybe a little less than that. The box has seen better days. It's maybe a tiny bit musty, but it's nevertheless, 1995 is the date on the back of the box, by the way. It's nevertheless an interesting piece. Now, this replaces 3 games in the original GDW Europa sequence: Western Desert, Torch, and the Near East. So we're not even going to be able to come close to setting up all of the map here, but I'll show you at least one. This is relatively early. There's a lot of stuff here, right? So a lot of the GRD Europa games came with these kind of nice wooden dice. At this point, I have quite a few of these because I actually kept the ones from my old Europa games back in the day, even though I got rid of the games. So let's pull out the big stack of paper. There are 7 maps here, not all of which are full size. I think there's at least one half-sized map. So let's look at the paper first, because that does not require a giant footprint. So we get order of battle booklets. There's one for the Allies, one for the neutral nations, which includes Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Transjordan, Turkey, and Vichy France, and then pro-Axis forces. And then it does include the Grand Europa Orders of Battle, which is the sort of extra game that was going to tie all this together, which never actually came out. Then there is an Axis Order of Battle booklet as well. The Axis Order of Battle booklet is 16 pages. The Allied Order of Battle booklet is 32 pages, and the neutral one is 24 pages. So some of these neutral nations will absolutely end up involved, like Vichy France and the French pro-Axis forces, and Egypt probably. Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Transjordan, probably not. Transjordan maybe, depending on how Operation Exporter happens, or if it happens in this particular game. So the Order of Battle booklets is basically the setups and the order of arrival for all these forces. So those 3 booklets. And then we get the War in the Desert Rulebook, which, interestingly is a lot thicker than, this is 64 pages, if I'm not mistaken. It is 64 pages. It's almost 3 times what the old GDW Europa rulebooks were. I'm going to be able to do a direct comparison on that pretty quickly because I got one more piece coming my way from eBay, which might arrive this week. We'll see. We'll do an inside the box video if it happens. I needed to speed up the pace of these videos a little bit, so I'm doing an extra video a week. So here's the rules, right? 64 pages. It's all rules except for maybe the last page, which is a chart of victory points, which I would call rules. So not a light game system, and certainly not the lightest version of this game system. We have a big stack of player aids, which include things like the unit identification charts, which are 2-sided. Presumably the green is intended for the Axis and the blue is intended for the Allies. That's kind of the Germans are kind of a green in this. TECs, which don't include the graphics of the terrain, which is not awesome. The results of the TEC are dependent on the weather, so in clear or frost, you use these results. If in mud, you use these results, and in winter, you use these results. Don't think any of that applies here in the desert, but there's a master terrain key, which tells you what the terrain looks like. Today, we'd probably see those together on the same card. Now, again, there's 2 of those. Here is a display for neutrals, for replacement pools, and things like that. Here's some more charts that are like miscellaneous charts, like rail movements, and supply lines and garrison levels that you have to maintain. There's one, that's number 1 miscellaneous chart. Here's number 3 miscellaneous chart, which has Turkish intervention, naval table, nothing on the back. Here is the turn record track. There are 2 turns per month in Europa, so you'll have, say, January 1, January 2. That doesn't mean January 2nd. It means the second half of January. Here's the massive weather table. I will point out that this weather table is the weather table for all of Europe and North Africa, and, you know, if you consider parts of Russia as Eurasia, whatever. But it covers all of Europa, not just the desert war. What zone the desert is in? Not sure, to be honest. We'll find out again when I get back to the game table next week. Here are your core displays. My recommendation would be to photocopy these and use those rather than this, because you're going to end up writing the core numbers in here. You have an axis display, which is, you know, holding boxes for other off-map areas. And garrisons and stuff. Here is an allied chart. What this is basically showing, this is single-sided, is basically showing you how your breakdowns work. So if you want to break down your 768 Armor Division, you can break it down into these units or build it back up from those units. So that is a thing that you can do. Here's more combat charts. Here's your CRT, your air combat chart, your flak chart, your bombing chart. Nothing on the backs of these. Here's an errata sheet, which is neat. This is interesting. Not sure I've ever personally seen these. These look like they're designed Sam Racina. I wonder if Sam Racina is the fellow that still makes similar trays. I don't know that this is the kind of tray that I'm thinking of. That is something to ask about, actually. Somebody who does make trays that fit into these boxes. Here is some ads, though. Second front replacement counter sheets from GRD. Here's a second front refit kit. This is what this ad is. They did a refit kit for a lot of these. My first to fight inside the box videos doesn't say refit on it, but it includes the refit kit stuff. Zone of Control. This was John Kisner's magazine. I have several issues of it. It was excellent. I wish it was still around. And this is a funny one. Here's Europa game stores that you could go to that carried Europa back in the mid-90s when this came out. The one that I'm familiar with, of course, will be Spellbinders in Akron, Ohio, which I think is gone, but it could be wrong. I know it changed hands. So anyway, Little Shop of War was another one that was in Akron that was worth going to. So let's bust out one map so we can take a look and see, just so I can give you a sense of what this thing looks like. So the GRD Europa maps definitely were sort of the same style as the old GDW Europa maps, which were, of course, a similar style to everything else that GDW did, or GDW being the original publisher, of course. I've been stumbling over that. These are slightly artistically upgraded from the GDW originals, but, not that much. And I think most folks would consider them dated looking today. Nevertheless, I don't consider them particularly ugly, and they are certainly perfectly usable. So I do not mind these maps in any way. We do have we have at least this one little oddball map of Istanbul. I could have just showed you this instead of folding out that whole thing. Of Istanbul, should Turkey end up somehow in the war. Turkey is present here because the Near East was where to put it, and it was included with an eye toward including it in Grand Europa, which GRD was making pretty decent progress on until Winston Hamilton passed away, and that was essentially the end of them as an operating concern. We all know what has befallen Europa with historical military simulations and their fabled legendary piece of vaporware that we are never, in fact, going to see. But this has been a look into the past in the mid-90s. with GRD's War in the Desert. Hopefully you found this somewhat entertaining or useful somehow. If so, please do give the video a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to help support Ardwulf's Lair, it would be greatly appreciated. You can check out the links to the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi in the video description. Once again, thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.